When Priscilla arrived in the United States in March 1963, she expected to live with Elvis's parents, finish her schooling, and maintain a semblance of normal teenage life. However, the reality was quite different. Instead of staying with his family, she moved full-time into Graceland, the sprawling mansion in Memphis, Tennessee, that would become her new world. The house was massive, luxurious, and filled with people, yet it was also a place where her life was carefully controlled and structured around Elvis's routines. School became a secondary part of her day. She enrolled in a nearby Catholic school to keep appearances and maintain a connection to the outside world, but the real focus of her life was inside the gates of Graceland. Elvis paid for everything she needed, from clothing and makeup to schooling and personal items. Over time, he began to shape her in ways both subtle and significant. Her hair was dyed jet black and styled in the tall, elegant fashion he preferred. Her wardrobe was carefully curated to match his tastes. Even the way she applied makeup was influenced by his preferences. Every day began early, often with lessons or schoolwork, and continued late into the night, following Elvis's rhythm and schedule. She tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but the boundaries between her teenage independence and his influence blurred constantly. Friends from her past were no longer part of her life, and letters or phone calls were filtered or monitored. Gradually, Priscilla began to understand that life with Elvis was both extraordinary and isolating. She was living in a luxurious environment, yet it was also a cage, beautiful in appearance but restrictive in experience. Her days were filled with lessons, chores, and interactions that revolved around Elvis's needs, moods, and schedule. The outside world was distant and inaccessible, leaving her to navigate a complex emotional landscape shaped by attention, expectation, and subtle control. She was admired and protected in some ways, yet the lack of true freedom and autonomy made the experience intensely challenging. Over time, she developed resilience, learning to manage the pressures of life under constant observation while remaining emotionally connected to the man she admired. The combination of fame, love, and control would define the early years of her life at Graceland, setting the stage for both personal growth and difficult emotional lessons. Inside Graceland, the relationship between Priscilla and Elvis was a mix of affection, guidance, and control. He was attentive, often engaging her in long conversations about his life, fears, and the pressures of being a global celebrity. Yet alongside these moments of intimacy, he established rules and boundaries that shaped her behavior and decisions. Elvis expected her to dress, speak, and even move in ways that pleased him. She adapted, learning to navigate a life where every choice was observed and, in many ways, influenced by him. While this dynamic allowed for closeness and intimacy, it also created tension. Priscilla learned to measure her words and actions carefully, balancing her personal desires with the expectations placed upon her. Outside observers often saw a glamorous teenage girl living with a legendary singer, enjoying privileges that few others could imagine. In reality, her life was a mixture of comfort, restriction, and emotional complexity. She experienced love and attention, but it came with strings attached, creating a constant awareness that her autonomy was limited. Despite this, she remained committed to maintaining her bond with Elvis, drawn in by both admiration and a sense of duty. Over time, she became deeply involved in his life, accompanying him to public appearances, managing interactions with visitors, and supporting him in both private and professional contexts. This early period at Graceland shaped her understanding of relationships, loyalty, and personal sacrifice, and laid the groundwork for the challenges and triumphs she would encounter in the decades ahead. As the years progressed, Priscilla's role at Graceland became more defined. She learned to navigate the complexities of fame, understanding that her association with Elvis made her a public figure almost overnight. Fans and the media were fascinated by her presence, often scrutinizing her every move. Photographs captured her alongside Elvis, and rumors spread about the nature of their relationship. Despite this public attention, the real dynamics of her life were largely private, hidden behind the gates of Graceland. She continued to attend school, complete homework, and maintain appearances, but most of her day-to-day life revolved around the household routines dictated by Elvis. Over time, she developed a careful awareness of social dynamics, learning how to present herself to the public while managing her private emotions and responsibilities. Living in such a unique environment required a combination of maturity, patience, and adaptability, qualities she cultivated through the constant balancing act of personal desires and external expectations. Her early teenage years had been filled with uncertainty and movement, but life at Graceland introduced a new layer of structure and complexity. She was simultaneously a student, a companion, and an observer, learning to understand the pressures of fame and the responsibilities that came with proximity to a global icon. While the house was filled with luxury, it was also a place where personal freedom was limited and every decision carried weight. These formative years shaped her sense of self, resilience, and understanding of human relationships, leaving a lasting impact that would influence her life long after she left Graceland. As Priscilla Presley grew older, her life at Graceland became increasingly complex. The mansion was not just a home, it was a stage on which the world watched her every move. Being associated with Elvis, one of the most famous men on the planet, meant that she was constantly in the public eye. Fans, journalists, and photographers followed even the smallest details of her life, turning ordinary moments into news stories. Every outfit she wore, every smile she gave, and every interaction she had with Elvis was scrutinized. Rumors spread quickly, some innocent, some cruel. People speculated about the nature of their relationship, her role in his life, and how much influence she truly had. Despite the attention, Priscilla tried to maintain her studies and keep a sense of normalcy, attending school and completing her homework while navigating the pressures of being a young woman in a highly unusual environment. Her days were meticulously structured, balancing academics, household responsibilities, and the constant presence of Elvis. Even simple activities like meeting friends or attending social events were monitored, ensuring that her public image remained consistent with the expectations of Elvis's fans and the media. Over time, she became skilled at managing these pressures, learning to present herself with poise and grace while protecting her private life from public scrutiny. The combination of attention, control, and luxury created a life that was both enviable and isolating, offering comfort and opportunity, but also demanding resilience, discretion, and emotional fortitude. It was a delicate balance that defined much of her young adult years and shaped the woman she would become. The personal relationship between Priscilla and Elvis was a mixture of love, mentorship, and control. While he showered her with affection, attention, and gifts, he also set rules and boundaries that shaped her appearance, behavior, and choices. Her hair, makeup, clothing, and social interactions were often influenced by his preferences, creating a life that was simultaneously glamorous and restrictive. Nights at Graceland were filled with conversation, music, and shared moments, yet they were also structured around his routines and desires. Priscilla learned to navigate these dynamics carefully, developing patience, emotional intelligence, and adaptability as she adjusted to the rhythm of life in one of the most famous homes in the world. The attention and influence of a man like Elvis came with both privilege and pressure, and she began to understand that love was not always synonymous with freedom. Her relationship with him required constant negotiation between personal desires and the expectations imposed by proximity to fame. She was deeply committed to maintaining her connection to him, drawn in by affection, admiration, and a sense of duty that went beyond mere teenage infatuation. This period of her life, filled with both extraordinary experiences and subtle constraints, would leave lasting impressions that influenced her future decisions and her understanding of relationships, control, and independence. Everything changed suddenly on August 16, 1977. Elvis Presley died unexpectedly, leaving behind a massive fortune and a sprawling estate that was far from secure. Graceland, the iconic mansion, came with immense financial obligations. Taxes, maintenance, and debts threatened to swallow the inheritance. Expenses for staff, property upkeep, and day-to-day life were enormous, and many deals and investments had drained much of the estate's wealth. Priscilla, now faced with the reality of losing the central figure in her life, also had to navigate the daunting task of preserving and managing Elvis's legacy. The glamorous life she had known was suddenly overshadowed by uncertainty, financial pressure, and grief. She became the steward of a household that was both a symbol of fame and a significant financial burden. The mansion, once a place of wonder and excitement, required careful management to keep it afloat. Priscilla worked tirelessly to honor Elvis's memory while addressing the practical and legal challenges left behind. She became deeply involved in restructuring the estate, making tough decisions, and ensuring that Graceland remained intact as a cultural landmark. The transition from being a young woman living under the guidance and influence of Elvis to a figure responsible for his legacy required maturity, courage, and resilience. Priscilla's life after Elvis's death was a test of her ability to balance personal grief with the practical demands of managing a global icon's estate, and it highlighted her strength, determination, and foresight. After Elvis Presley's sudden death in 1977, Priscilla Presley faced a life that was radically different from the one she had known. The mansion of Graceland, once a playground of luxury and affection, became a responsibility of monumental proportions. She was now tasked with managing an estate that, despite its fame, teetered on the brink of financial collapse. Taxes, bills, and the ongoing cost of maintaining the property were enormous, and she had to act quickly to prevent the losses from overwhelming what remained of Elvis's fortune. In response, Priscilla displayed remarkable determination, business acumen, and strategic thinking. She worked with advisors and lawyers to restructure debts, renegotiate contracts, and protect the assets associated with Elvis's name. Over time, her efforts transformed Graceland from a private residence into a public landmark, opening it to visitors as a museum that celebrated Elvis's life and legacy. Through this process, she ensured that the cultural significance of the estate was preserved, giving fans around the world a chance to experience the home of a music legend while stabilizing the financial foundation that supported it. Her role in managing Graceland demonstrated not only a dedication to preserving her late husband's memory, but also a newfound independence and strength that defined her life moving forward. By taking on these responsibilities, Priscilla showed the world that she was far more than the companion of a superstar. She was a capable, intelligent woman with a vision to protect and grow a legacy under extraordinary circumstances. At the same time, Priscilla's personal life evolved in new directions. No longer living entirely in the shadow of Elvis's fame, she began pursuing her own ambitions and carving out a space for her identity. She entered the entertainment industry, acting in television and film, and embraced opportunities that allowed her to express herself creatively. Her career choices reflected both the lessons learned during her years with Elvis and a desire to build an independent path that was entirely her own. In addition to acting, Priscilla became involved in business ventures, including fragrances and product lines associated with her name, further establishing her independence and entrepreneurial skills. Her work outside of Graceland allowed her to explore who she was as an individual, separate from the influence and expectations of one of the most famous men in history. While she never stopped honoring the memory of Elvis, she balanced this with a focus on her own ambitions, demonstrating resilience, adaptability, and a commitment to personal growth. Her life after Elvis became a testament to the power of agency, showing that even within a world once defined by control and observation, she could create a meaningful, independent life. Beyond career and financial responsibilities, Priscilla also reflected deeply on the emotional journey she had experienced. Her early life of loss, constant movement, and isolation had prepared her for the challenges of living within the intense, highly controlled environment of Graceland. Yet, even with love, admiration, and loyalty, she came to recognize the fine line between affection and control. She has described the years with Elvis as a beautiful cage, luxurious yet restrictive, filled with both joy and subtle limitations. These reflections informed her later life decisions, influencing how she approached relationships, parenting, and public engagement. She remained committed to sharing her story with honesty, balancing admiration for the man she loved with an acknowledgement of the complexities and challenges they faced together. In interviews, public appearances, and written accounts, Priscilla has consistently conveyed a nuanced understanding of love, power, and personal responsibility, offering insights that resonate far beyond the sphere of celebrity. Her story is one of survival, adaptation, and eventual empowerment, demonstrating that a life lived in the shadow of fame can also be a life of agency, growth, and enduring influence. Priscilla's role in preserving Elvis's legacy, building her own career, and reflecting on her life experiences culminates in a story that is both remarkable and instructive. She transformed her early challenges, the pressures of fame, and the complexities of her relationship with Elvis into a life of purpose and independence. Graceland stands today not only as a symbol of Elvis Presley's global impact, but also as a testament to Priscilla's vision, dedication, and perseverance. Her journey illustrates the interplay between love, control, and personal agency, highlighting the ways in which a woman navigated extraordinary circumstances to create meaning, stability, and a lasting legacy. Through resilience, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to her own growth, Priscilla Presley emerged as a figure of strength, creativity, and influence, showing that even in the most challenging of circumstances, it is possible to carve a life defined by both love and independence. Her story remains a source of fascination, admiration, and inspiration, offering lessons about navigating fame, managing relationships, and achieving personal empowerment in a world that is constantly watching. There's so much mystery surrounding Priscilla Presley's life, her years with Elvis, and the story the world never truly knew. For nearly 50 years, she remained silent, protecting his image, smiling in interviews, and building a life in the shadow of a legend. But at 80 years old, Priscilla finally revealed the truth about the night that humiliated her, the guns, the mood swings, and what really happened when Elvis discovered Mike Stone. This is the untold story of love, control, and the life she lived inside Graceland's gates. Priscilla Ann Wagner was born on May 24, 1945, at a naval hospital in Brooklyn. From the start, her life was marked by loss. Her father, James Wagner, a Navy pilot, died in a plane crash when she was only 6 months old, leaving her mother to raise her alone. In 1948, Anne remarried Paul Bolu, an Air Force officer, who later adopted Priscilla. The family moved constantly, following the demands of military life, living in Texas 1 year, Germany the next, never staying long enough to feel at home. School was hard, lunchtimes were lonely, and she often felt like an outsider. These early years, full of movement and quiet sorrow, shaped her resilience and her ability to adapt to new challenges. Everything changed on September 13, 1959. Priscilla, just 14, attended a small gathering hosted by an Air Force officer named Curry Grant. In the crowded room, she met Elvis Presley, already a global superstar and serving in the Army. He noticed her navy and white sailor dress immediately and asked to talk. They spent hours listening to records and sharing stories. By the end of the night, he kissed her goodbye, her first real kiss. Her parents were cautious, and when Elvis arrived in uniform with her father, he spoke politely about curfews and responsibility, earning their trust. From that night on, Elvis became central to her life. He insisted on accompanying her whenever she met other boys, observing closely while giving her gifts and attention. For Priscilla, it was both thrilling and confining, a mixture of admiration, love, and early lessons in control. In 1963, Priscilla moved permanently to the United States. She was supposed to live with Elvis's parents and finish school, but instead, she became part of life inside Graceland. Every aspect of her days was shaped by Elvis: her hair, clothes, makeup, and routines. She enrolled in a nearby Catholic school, but most of her life happened inside the gates of the mansion. Days were structured, nights followed Elvis's schedule, and the outside world was distant. She tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but slowly she realized that love and control were not the same. Life with Elvis was luxurious and exciting, yet isolating. She described it later as living inside a beautiful cage. As she grew older, the world watched her every move. Fans, journalists, and photographers scrutinized every detail of her life with Elvis. Rumors spread about their relationship, and her role became a constant subject of speculation. Inside, she navigated the pressures of fame while balancing her studies and personal life. Nights were filled with conversations and music with Elvis, yet the structure and rules of Graceland dictated her daily existence. Every choice, every action, was measured against his expectations and public perception. This combination of luxury, attention, and restriction shaped her adolescence, teaching lessons in patience, discretion, and emotional intelligence that would stay with her forever. August 16, 1977, changed everything. Elvis died unexpectedly, leaving behind a fortune at risk. The Graceland estate was drowning in debt, with taxes, maintenance, and staff costs threatening to collapse the property. Priscilla faced a monumental challenge, managing both her grief and the financial reality of one of the world's most famous estates. She worked tirelessly, restructuring debts, renegotiating contracts, and opening Graceland to the public as a museum. Through her dedication, she preserved Elvis's legacy while stabilizing the estate. Her role showcased resilience, business acumen, and courage, proving that she was capable of more than being the companion of a superstar. She was a guardian of history and culture. After Elvis, Priscilla built her own life, pursuing acting, business ventures, and personal independence. She starred in television and film, launched product lines, and managed her public persona with skill and poise. Through it all, she reflected on her life with Elvis, describing it as a mixture of love, admiration, and control. She shared lessons about relationships, loyalty, and personal agency, showing the world how to navigate fame, power, and personal growth. Today, Graceland stands